So we go to an interview with Richard Perle, I was fine up until this point. I was actually struggling because I was like, I'm barely taking any of this in. It's just like so all over the place. No through line with anything. They're all just kind of being like, well, what about this dumb thing? Well, you think a dumb thing. I mean, I also think a dumb thing. Then they go to the interview with Richard Perle. And this is when I was like, oh, this is horrific. And
this was authentically perverse to have him on it. It was so perverse that, in fact, on the other side of it, I have in my notes that I almost respected Richard Perle for doing it. Richard Perle is in hell. Like, he's a bad guy that is responsible for a war that cost hundreds of thousands of lives and didn't need to happen, or was one of the sort of logisticians behind it, not one of the big ideologues. But the idea of him like popping up on a video screen so Bill Maher could go, really? To him, it's like actually kind of bold. I don't know how they decided that he should do that.
And he doesn't even do like Joe Watkins, he gets made fun of and he's like, ha, 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 ha.
Yep.
But Richard Perle is dead serious the whole time. And he's like, no, actually, the intelligence may have been wrong, but we never believed it to be a lie. And we were never untruthful with the American people. And it's just like, man, you bring this guy on and you just let him sort of talk like this and and Bill Maher will just be like, okay.
I don't think so. Yeah. Like it is
great work, man.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this is the other thing too, where you can really see the sort of limitations of Bill Maher as like, there's a couple of ways that this could have worked where it's like, I mean, I don't know that like at this point, Jon Stewart's politics, to the extent that we know them, are like an incoherent mismatch that is probably more left of center than right of center, but he was like a confident interviewer, I guess.
Yeah.
In this case, Maher doesn't have values, doesn't have an opinion on anything that isn't an opinion about other people's opinions, and then also is not a good interviewer. And so what happens here is that he's letting this guy lie in a way that is also just TV death. Like there's no tension. There's no like sense of a follow-up coming or whatever. So it's just kind of like two guys sitting back, smirking at each other.
Yeah. Like at this point, Jon Stewart, right? Not at this point. In 5 years, Jon Stewart would get essentially the head of the Republican effort to stop Obamacare from getting passed. He would get her removed from that position because he brought her on the show, pulled out the bill in front of him and went, where are the death panels in this? And when she would say, he would flip to that page and go, no, and read it and go, no, it's not. And he made her look so bad, the Republicans replaced her with somebody else. It's like he would at least prepare for an interview.
Yeah.
He would know what he wanted. He would be like, well, I know this is true and this person is coming on and I'm going to make this case to them and have a reason for doing this. Yeah, Bill Maher, he's just like, he's like and
I have to tell you, I have taken an awful lot of guff from my liberal friends like Ariana Huffington for saying that, look, on the long-range big picture of getting the freedom and democracy ball rolling in the Middle East, maybe these guys had it right. They say to me, how can you say that? I say, I read the paper.
He says this over and over and over for the rest of the show.
Seems to have no justification for it beyond that people are being too annoying and saying that it isn't good. He's
like,
okay, things are changing. But what I cannot defend is A, the lying to get us there, and B, the incompetence. So if I give you the credit on that part of it, would you concede that when you planners went into the room for this, it was understood that this was going to operate on two tracks? One, what we really want to accomplish, the part I like, and two, how are we going to sell it? And those are two very different things.
And Richard Perle goes, no. And it's just like, well, okay, I guess he got you.
It is also like, it's very funny to be like, Richard Perle, like you were, instrumental in starting this war that everybody hates. I have a show on HBO. We're in our third season. I think we're about the same. So if I do this, will you admit that? Like, Richard Perle doesn't owe you shit, dude. He doesn't know who you are. Like, you just got done sucking up to Ian McShane at a weird horseshoe-shaped table. What is he, like?
Yeah, it's like Richard Perle is going to be more handsomely rewarded by the people he works for going on the show and going, none of that's true. We did it intelligently and we did it in good faith. Like, why would he risk career damage by being like, yeah, you're right. You're such a good guy. For some reason going, hey, the war seems like it might actually end up being good. I'll go along with the premise you have that we did it, under false pretenses. Bill Maher, once again goes,
Again, as I say, I think you guys might have been right about the big picture, and I'm not above saying, you know what, maybe I was wrong. Okay.
then asks an absurdly stupid question.
But on the other half of it, why the incompetence? Why was this war conducted so badly from the beginning? And you have to admit that cost lives. And my theory is because Republicans are sentimentalists, because you guys thought you have such rose-colored glasses about America that you thought as soon as we showed up in Iraq, they'd be going, freedom, Americans. And that's why we didn't need armor on the tanks, because they'd be giving us flowers and chocolates and nylon.
And then one more time, he goes,
I give it up to you again. In 20 or 30 years, if the Middle East is a freer and more democratic place, I think you guys get a lot of credit for seeing into the future and making us safer.
and it's just like, why?
For what reason? For going on, for like turning on a webcam and getting asked a bunch of questions by a comic who can't read? Like, that's the easiest part of Richard Perle's day. I think that this is, it also speaks to like the fatuousness of like Maher in general, that like, say that he had gotten what he wanted from that question, which was Richard Perle being like, you know what, we made some mistakes. There was some, we didn't get everything right. And, we didn't always tell the whole truth, but we believe that this is going to work out. What then? Like, what have you accomplished at that point? It's, to me, like, if you don't believe that the war was just, there's not a justification that you're going to get, let alone one of those sort of like qualified, like, oh, we meant well type justifications that he seems to be seeking, that is going to in any way change the fact that this disastrous war is a disaster.
I think at this point his thinking is, well, I think it might end up being good. So I want to be the guy who gets them to admit, yes, we lied about it, but we did it for a good reason and it worked out well. So Bill Maher can be like, I was the guy who got them to admit the truth about this thing that succeeded.
Under relentless questioning.
It's like so glib. Like, really just so much of being like, come on, will you just admit it? And it's like, no. How many times does this guy not have to admit it before you accept he's not going to? I mean, it's similar to his stance on the war, where he keeps being like, well, what if it does work? And it's like, well, it's not working. Why would we go, yeah, you're right, let's play around with this hypothetical that you have just decided we have to honor and embrace also, and talk about?
Say everybody does honor his hypothetical, and it's like, all right, so we should talk about it for another 8 years. Like, you're just gonna fill your show with more fucking Pope shit? Like, all you do is talk about what's on cable news, dude. Like, it's not going away. The idea that somehow it's like too premature to look at this thing where there's like just people dying, civil society in full collapse. Like, we got lied to. We're spending all of this money. Like, I'm not allowed to be mad about that. Like,
and he comes back from the interview, and Ian McShane immediately goes, you know, that guy Richard Perle tried to sue Seymour Hersh in England because our libel laws are stricter, because Seymour Hersh reported on the failures of the Iraq War. Like, you know, that's the kind of guy you just talk to, right?
Yeah.
And Bill Maher's like, hold on. When can we finally admit maybe this is going well? And it's like, well, that's not really what he asked you.
Right. He actually asked you, like, that's a better, maybe you should have, can you call him back? Can you get him back on the screen to ask him the question about why he did that? Because that's like, yeah, Ian McShane sort of understatedly auditioning for Bill Maher's job and being better at it is like a fun little thread running through this episode, where it's like, what if the guy that sort of knows what's happening in the world and kind of has opinions about it was also pleasant to look at? What would that be like?